Hello everyone, Anthony from AMH Audio Productions here. Been a couple weeks since I made a video. I wanted to make a video for you guys today. I have a couple of them in the works. Some of them are pretty neat ideas for videos, so hopefully when they come out, you'll dig them. Just to quickly explain why I was delayed on this video is because family was sick, working overtime at work, doing stuff with the band when I was able to, and just dealing with some stuff I had to fix at home. So, been pretty hectic here for a while, but things seem to be calming down. So, let's get into it. So today, I'm going to talk to you about how to make a band from the ground up, from scratch. How to find the people, how to get them in your band, how to find the right people to put in your band. Now, this may actually take a couple videos because there's several subjects you got to kind of go through when you're trying to form a band. And again, these are just tips, basic knowledge, just knowledge in general of how to form a band, things you might even have to deal with. You might not necessarily want to, but you might have to deal with. So let's get into it. So how do I know what it's like to make a band? Well, I've made plenty of bands within my life, and I've been involved with music for about 10 to 11 years. I started off with music when my mom bought me a cheapo Fender Esquire knockoff and amp. I didn't know how to do anything on it. I slowly self-taught myself how to make music, and then I slowly learned a few other things from other people. I learned some music theory in college, and then I even just watch how people play to kind of figure things out. That's just how I am. But I've been in plenty of bands as well. Between my solo music, my production, and all that, I've also been in plenty of bands. Most of the bands were just bands where you met one time, made a Facebook page, and never met again, never went anywhere. It sucks. And I'm not the only one who's dealt with that. I know plenty of other people who have dealt with it. And that's even pushed some people away from being in bands anymore because they're afraid of being in that situation again. They're just stressed out. They think, oh, it's going to go places, and it doesn't. So I'm going to try and help you guys avoid dealing with situations like that. So let's get into it. The first thing I want to discuss is you. You need to be prepared. You need to be ready to make a commitment to a band. You need to be ready to make a commitment to making a band. You can't just say, oh, well, I give up after like one practice or after finding people who are legitimately wanting to be in your band. I feel like when you're making a band, it's not on the level of like a marriage or having a kid or anything like that, but it's kind of a commitment. It can be a pretty serious one too, because some people, that's their livelihood, especially if they're willing to stop doing solo music, even leave another band just to help you out, which I've seen happen before, and you just up and say, I don't want to do it anymore. It's not fair to those people. It's not fair to people who were looking forward to your music. It's not fair to anyone who supported you when you were doing this. So you gotta be ready for a commitment. You gotta be ready, wanting, and really willing to deal with some of the things you're going to be dealing with when you're trying to start from scratch. Now, the next thing to discuss is what kind of instrument do you do? Or do you not do an instrument? Do you just do vocals? That's something you really should decide, because this can be kind of imperative on what kind of members you're looking for and what they do and what they can bring to the table. If you play guitar, yeah, you might want a second guitarist in a band, especially depending on what style and genre of music you're doing, but you might not necessarily need it. I've always been a firm belief when it comes to a band that you necessarily only need 2 people. You can make it work. I've seen it work. It can be really hard, because a lot of the work you guys are going to be putting into is mainly in production. You might not even be you're going to be putting work into live stuff, but because it's just 2 people, you're limited on what all you can do live compared to in a studio doing production, especially if you guys have the knowledge and experience on how to do production. You guys can do a lot in the studio, but when it comes to live stuff, you still are limited. No matter how good some of these musicians are, they still only have 2 hands, 2 feet, 1 head. You can't do everything in the world. You can't do everything at once. You're not going to be able to play 3 different guitar parts, most likely, unless you're just insane. you're limited. No matter what you want to admit, you're limited. But you can do it with just 2 people. But if you really want to set some limits for yourself, if you want to limit it down to a minimum of 3 or 4 people, you should. But you should look at what you can work with. If you need another guitarist, by all means, put that down on your list. But I wouldn't bank on it. So we've talked about if you're going to be doing instruments, if you're going to be doing vocals. The next thing to talk about is, are you going to be able to provide and help out your own band when needed? What I mean by this is, do you have a job and do you have a vehicle? Now, there are special circumstances. I've seen it. There are some people who do have a mental disability or mental disorder where they cannot drive. Like, legitimately, it'll just set their anxiety on edge really bad. I've seen it happen. You don't really want those kind of people behind the wheel to begin with. And I've seen people who are disabled who legitimately can't work, but they might be able to sit down and play some guitar or just sing if need be. So there are some limits, but realistically, do you have some form of income? Do you have a way to get to a practice space? I mean, if you're providing a practice space, that helps a lot, but you're going to still need a car to get to shows, to get to other people's houses if need be, if you guys are going to carpool. But you get my point there. I do recommend having some form of income, having a vehicle, or at least some really, really dependable ride to work, whether it be a ride to band practice, such as like a bus or maybe a friend who's free a lot of the time who can give you a ride. Something like that. It's very important to a band environment. Now, next thing we're going to talk about is your equipment and learning. Now, when it comes to equipment, like I mentioned, this depends quite a bit on what you will be doing in the band. I'm experienced with several different instruments: guitar, drums, keyboard. I've done vocals before, played bass guitar before. All those instruments can provide different hurdles when it comes to equipment. And depending on your genre and style of music and what you're going for, you might not even need a lot. You might just need an acoustic guitar, which some cheaper end acoustic guitars can sound good. And here's one thing you need to look at whenever you're looking at your equipment. Let's take, for example, you're a guitarist, like I am. One of the important things that's going to come to you is your tone. How is your amp and guitar going to sound? With today's technology, you can find cheaper guitars can sound pretty well with a decent amp. So you might have to look at a cheaper end guitar versus a decent amp. You don't necessarily need to go all out on everything. If you have the extra money, if you're rich, I mean, you might not even be watching this video. I mean, if you're rich though, go ahead and spend the money if you want. But if you're struggling with money and you don't have a ton to work with, go try out some cheaper end amps that have a decent amount of volume to them. You don't want amps that would distort audio though, because it would be harder, for example, for like your bandmates to hear you if you are practicing. Now, you don't necessarily need a huge amp though, just one that's kind of loud that can get through a practice. Because if you're playing a show, most venues will have a way to mic up your amp, even if it's kind of quiet, and just turn it up through speakers. And if your amp has a line out, that makes it even easier sometimes. I've done that before, and it works well. If you have the money to get half stack, you can if you want, no problem. But if you are tight on money, you need to look at that stuff. The same can be said for stuff like drums as well. I myself have a cheap drum kit. It's actually used. I think I'm the third owner, but I've had it for a couple years now. And the guy who had it before me had it for a couple years, and I think mainly just kept it in his garage. And I actually know the guy who owned it originally. It's a cheaper end kit. It's lasted a long time. It doesn't sound the best, but it doesn't sound bad either. It sounds better than some higher end equipment, I think. But again, it's not the best equipment you can get. And I mean, I've even lost a couple pieces over the years. I have one of my cymbal stands getter rigged. The kick the kick drum, it's missing a bolt or whatever, so I have to be careful when setting it up. And the hi-hat cymbals are completely smashed. They're terrible. They sound fine to me, only because I don't typically mess with a closed or open hi-hat. Usually I would leave mine just a little bit open, just so where the cymbals can hit. If I'm able to, I'll try and record some videos of me kind of showing some of my equipment and what I mean by certain things I go over. And I'm also sorry if I stutter or mumble. I have issues with that sometimes. Now, the next thing is learning. This is very, very important. Now, like I mentioned before, I'm self-taught, but I did have other people teach me things, and I also did take a year of music theory in college. Now, I would have actually taken more than 1 year, and actually probably even taken more courses involving music, but my financial aid wouldn't have covered it because I was going into a different program that focused more on the audio production. And yeah, college is a pain. I might make a video about that sometime. But anyway, so I know some stuff myself, but I've been taught by other people. And it's very important to learn the best way you learn. Do you learn best with hands-on? Or do you learn best with watching someone? And there's even, do you like just watch, like reading? Does that help you? I know some people who can just read stuff about how to make music, how to write music, how to do things, and it works well. For me, when it comes to like music, guitar and drums and stuff, I feel like it's best when it's hands-on, or for me, I can watch a video, but it's still not as good as like someone sitting here in front of me and explaining it to me. Once someone's taught me something, I'll know it for the rest of my life, unless I go years without playing it. Like I've learned covers of songs where I had it down pat, and then I hadn't played it for like a year or two, and so I forgot things naturally. But I still remember the majority of the music. So you gotta figure out what is the best way for you to learn. There are several ways for you to learn hands-on if you want to do more than just watch a video on YouTube. Some of the better options, at least I think, is if you go to a music store, guitar store, whatever you want to call them, like the one that's near me that's locally owned. There's a couple locally owned near me actually. I think each one of them has teachers and tutors on like how to play guitar, how to play drums, how to write music, how to sing, all that stuff. They'll have tutors, and I don't know if they get called in or if they're there every day, but that's something to look into. Go to your local music shop. Sure, they have some tutors, and just get tutored. And another option is if there's a college near you that has some music programs, what you could do. Now, granted, I haven't been in college for a while now. I don't know if this has changed, and I don't know if colleges do this differently. But my college would allow someone just to pay to take one class if they wanted to. So if you wanted to go take a class on music theory, you could pay for that one class and just go there whenever it's available. And that's a good option. If you can do that, I'd recommend doing it because it's a lot cheaper than going to full-time college. Like going to college full-time if you just want knowledge and you're not worried about a degree. If you just want to learn how to do things, that'd be a good option. There are also other options. You can look online and find tutors online. I've never done that. Usually, like I said, it'd be college or YouTube tutorial videos for me and my friends. So those are two major things right there. The next thing we're going to talk about is practice. You need to practice. Even if you're going somewhere and learning quite a bit. If you're going to a college course and learning quite a bit, that's good. If you're learning from one of your friends, that's good. If you're learning from YouTube videos, that's good. But you still need to sit down by yourself and practice. That's very important. At least for me, it's very important because if you're sitting there, for example, learning a song, and like let's say you're covering a song by I don't know, AC/DC. That's just a band that popped into my head. You don't only want to have that AC/DC track playing. You don't only want the tutorial video on there that teaches you how to play the song on there every time you play it. You're going to get into a bad habit then. At least I've done this before, where you know the song, you know how to play it, but then you don't know, like, you just can't play it without the video being there. And that can be very counterintuitive. And that can cause some bad habits when it comes to music. It can cause some issues for you just to play it live or even be in the studio. So yeah, practice. It's a good thing to learn some covers. I don't tend to play a ton of covers. Like I said, I've learned covers. Excuse me. I've learned covers, but I don't primarily focus on covers when I'm playing in a band. It's the way I look at covers. Unless you're adding something special to the table, like, I guess the best example I can give off the top of my head is the Pop Goes Punk albums. Those are all covers, but they're all done in a different way. They're not just copy paste. That's the only time I'm really super interested in covers. Like, I'll sit there and just analyze what they're doing and be mesmerized. Now, granted, that doesn't mean every Pop Goes Punk song is good. I don't like every single one. I do like some of them, though. I do prefer covers that are done in a different way than the original. That's my preference. But even if you're not doing anything different to the song, learn some covers. It doesn't have to be super technical, I guess, unless you're trying to do like a technical death metal band, if you don't know what I mean, or maybe a power metal band. It's more technical than like I mentioned earlier, AC/DC. My best recommendation is learn a song that it doesn't have to be super technical, but for the style you're going for. That way, once you eventually find these other bandmates, even if you guys don't like the song, you can sit there, go over it, make sure you guys have the chemistry. I feel like this video has gone on long enough, though. I feel like there's probably going to be a couple different parts to this, which I'm okay with. Hopefully you guys did learn a little bit. Hopefully I did help you guys. And I'm sorry again for mumbling and stuttering a couple times. And I'm sure I had to make some cuts here and there. But thank you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this video, I'm going to leave my links for social media in the description of the video. I have a Facebook, Instagram, and a Twitter. I go on Facebook more often than I do the other two. I also have a SoundCloud and a Bandcamp for the production stuff here. Again, thanks for watching. Hope you guys have a good one.